The colony of New Haven was celebrating its 20th Founders Day when the sky turned dark with enemy ships. Lily Carter was 7 years old. She had brown hair that her mother always tied in 2 braids, and she loved to run faster than any other child in the colony. On that warm afternoon, she was playing chase with her friends in the central square, while her mother, Emma, watched from a nearby bench. Emma Carter was a xenobiologist. She had spent 15 years studying alien species, learning their languages and customs. Her husband Jack was a commander in the United Earth Defense Fleet, stationed 3 star systems away on the warship Resolute. She missed him terribly, but she understood his duty. Humanity was still new to the galaxy, still small and careful among the elder races. The first explosion shattered the windows of the community center. Emma grabbed Lily and pulled her close as people began screaming and running. She looked up and saw the ships. Varax cruisers, dozens of them, descending through the atmosphere like a swarm of hungry insects. The Varax were reptilian warriors who had terrorized the frontier colonies for centuries. The elder races of the Galactic Compact tolerated them because they controlled important trade routes. Humanity had suffered their raids before, but never like this. The Varax landed soldiers in the square. They were tall, covered in gray scales, with yellow eyes that showed no mercy. They began rounding up the colonists, pushing them into groups, shooting anyone who resisted. Emma tried to hide with Lily behind an overturned cart, but a Varax soldier found them. He grabbed Emma by the arm and threw her to the ground. Another soldier took Lily. "No," Emma screamed. "Please, she is just a child." The soldiers did not listen. They dragged mother and daughter to the center of the square, where a Varax commander was setting up a broadcast device. His name was Sub-Warlord Thren, and he wore ceremonial armor decorated with the bones of his enemies. Thren activated the device. A light blinked, indicating that the signal was being transmitted across all human networks. Millions of people would see what happened next. "Humans," Thren said, his voice cold and harsh. "You spread through this galaxy like vermin. You take what is not yours. You forget your place." He gestured to his soldiers. "This is your warning. This is what happens when you challenge the Varax." Emma fought against the soldiers holding her, but she could not break free. She watched as they brought Lily forward. Her daughter was crying, calling for her mother. "Remember this," Thren said to the camera. "Remember what your weakness costs you." He killed Lily Carter while the galaxy watched. Emma's screams echoed through the square. The Varax beat her until she stopped moving, then left her for dead among the other survivors. They returned to their ships and departed as quickly as they had arrived. The raid had lasted less than an hour. 3 star systems away, Commander Jack Carter was on the bridge of the Resolute when the broadcast reached them. The communications officer tried to stop it, but Jack had already seen the notification. A priority message from New Haven, his home. He watched the entire recording in silence. The bridge crew stood frozen, not knowing what to do. They had served with Commander Carter for 5 years. He was known as a calm and steady leader, the kind of man who never lost control. They expected him to collapse, to scream, to break down. He did none of those things. When the recording ended, Jack turned to his first officer. His face showed no expression at all, but something had changed behind his eyes. Something had gone cold and hard in a way that would never warm again. "I need emergency leave," he said. His voice was quiet and flat. The first officer swallowed. "Sir, I do not have the authority. We are on patrol orders. Then I resign my commission." "Commander, please. Let me contact Fleet Command." Before the first officer could argue further, the main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. It was Admiral Claire Dawson, the head of the United Earth Defense Fleet. She was a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many wars. "Commander Carter," she said, I watched the broadcast. I'm so sorry. Jack said nothing. I understand you want to resign. I'm asking you not to. Admiral Dawson leaned forward. I am not going to tell you to stay calm. I am not going to tell you to let the system handle this. The system has failed us for 300 years. The Galactic Compact has ignored every crime the Varax committed against our people because peace was convenient. She paused. That changes today. Jack finally spoke. What are you offering? A new assignment. One that will take you exactly where you want to go. The Admiral's expression hardened. We've been hiding our true strength for decades, Commander. We let the galaxy think we were weak, so they would not see us as a threat. That strategy's over. Now they will see what humanity becomes when we stop pretending. Across human space, something was happening that the Varax had not anticipated. They expected fear. They expected panic. They expected humans to beg the Galactic Compact for protection. Instead, recruitment centers were overwhelmed with volunteers. Factories switched to military production without waiting for government orders. Scientists abandoned their research to work on weapons. Parents who had never held a gun demanded training. The rage spread like fire through dry grass. It connected every human in the galaxy, a shared fury that transcended language and culture. They had all watched a little girl die. They had all felt powerless. Now they wanted to do something about it. The Galactic Compact's monitoring systems detected a massive spike in human communications. Their translation algorithms struggled to interpret the emotional content. The elder races had forgotten what this feeling was. They had been civilized for so long that they no longer understood the concept. Elder Yunthai of the Etherians was 4,000 years old. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had watched species destroy themselves and others. She thought she understood every pattern that the galaxy could produce. When she reviewed the human data, she felt something she had not experienced in centuries. A cold sensation in her ancient bones. A whisper of warning from instincts long dormant. She tried to dismiss it. Humans were young and weak. They could not threaten the established order, but she kept returning to the recording of the human father. The moment he learned his daughter was dead, the way his face did not crumble, but instead became something else entirely. Something patient and cold and absolutely certain. Yunthai had seen that expression before, long ago, on the faces of species that no longer existed. Species that had burned themselves and their enemies to ash rather than accept defeat. She wondered if the Varax understood what they had awakened. She suspected they did not. Ambassador Ben Torres stood before the Galactic Compact Council and waited for silence. The great chamber was filled with representatives of the 12 elder races, beings who had ruled the stars for millennia before humans learned to make fire. They looked down at him with expressions ranging from pity to contempt. The council speaker, a crystalline being from the Mineral Collective, addressed him first. Ambassador Torres, the Compact extends its condolences for the tragedy at New Haven. We understand your grief. Thank you, Torres said, keeping his voice steady. However, we must counsel patience. The Varax are a member species of this council. Their actions, while regrettable, fall within the boundaries of territorial disputes. We cannot authorize military action against them. Torres had expected this. The Varax controlled hyperspace lanes worth trillions of credits. The elder races had always chosen profit over justice. They had watched humans die for 3 centuries and done nothing. The council proposes a mediation process, the speaker continued. Financial compensation will be provided to the affected families. The Varax will issue a formal statement of regret. In exchange, humanity will accept these terms and refrain from retaliation. Torres looked around the chamber. He saw beings of immense power and ancient wisdom, and he understood something clearly for the first time. They were not going to help. They had never intended to help. Humans were useful to them as trading partners and occasional soldiers, but not as equals deserving of protection. "You misunderstand," Torres said. "I am not here to ask for your help." The chamber went quiet. "I am here to inform you to stay out of our way." He turned and walked out before they could respond. Behind him, the elder races erupted in confused discussion. They had never seen a minor species behave with such arrogance on Earth. Admiral Claire Dawson addressed the combined military command in a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The room was filled with admirals and generals who had spent their careers maintaining the illusion of human weakness. "For 60 years, we have hidden our true capabilities," Dawson said. "We built ships in secret facilities. We trained soldiers who officially do not exist. We developed weapons that the Galactic Compact does not know about. All of this was to protect ourselves while we grew stronger." She activated a holographic display. It showed fleet positions across human space, but the numbers were wrong. There were too many ships. Far too many. "This is the Shadow Fleet, 4,000 warships, fully armed and crewed. The elder races think we have 300 vessels." They are about to learn the truth. Commander Jack Carter sat in the front row. He had not slept since New Haven. He did not need sleep anymore. He needed only one thing. Dawson looked directly at him. "Commander Carter, you will lead Strike Group 7. Your mission is to locate and capture Sub-Warlord Thren. I want him alive." "Understood," Jack said. Captain Sam Holloway, Jack's oldest friend and the commander of Human Special Forces, sat beside him. He leaned over and whispered, "Alive might be difficult. My people are very eager." "He stays alive until I decide otherwise," Jack replied. "After that, your people can have what is left." In the intelligence section, Lieutenant Amy Chun briefed the senior officers on Varak's psychology and tactics. She was young, barely 30, but she had spent a decade studying the enemy. "The Varaks believe they are invincible," she explained. "No species has ever successfully invaded their territory. They fight aggressive, short wars designed to intimidate opponents into surrender. They do not understand prolonged conflict because they have never faced it." She changed the display to show Varak's military doctrine. Their entire strategy is based on fear. They think brutality will make enemies collapse. They have no experience fighting an enemy that does not care about casualties. They have never fought an enemy that is genuinely angry. An admiral raised his hand. "What happens when they realize we are not going to stop?" Chun paused. Their military doctrine has no answer for that scenario. It simply does not exist in their thinking. When they understand what they are facing, I predict complete psychological breakdown. On the Varak's homeworld, Warlord Krasix reviewed reports of human activity. His advisors were dismissive. Humans were soft creatures, they said. They cried over their dead and wrote poems about peace. They would rattle their weapons for a while, then accept whatever compensation the compact offered. Krasix was not so certain. He had watched the recording from New Haven many times. Not the death of the child, but the reaction of her father. He had seen many species respond to tragedy. Most collapsed. Some raged blindly. The human had done neither. The human had become something else. Something that Krasix recognized from ancient Varak's legends. The story spoke of warriors who lost everything and stopped caring about survival. They called them the Hollow Ones, the Walking Dead. They were more dangerous than any army because they had nothing left to lose. "Double our border patrols," Krasix ordered. His advisors protested. "Warlord, that is unnecessary. The humans cannot threaten us. Do as I command." On the rebuilt medical station orbiting New Haven, Emma Carter woke from her coma. Her body was broken in 17 places. The doctor said it was a miracle she survived. The first thing she asked about was, Lily. When they told her what she already knew, she did not cry. She had no tears left. The second thing she asked about was her husband. They told her Jack was leading a military strike group toward Verac space. She nodded. The third thing she asked for was a data terminal. I want access to every file we have on the Veracs, she said. Biology, psychology, sociology, military structure, everything. The doctor hesitated. Mrs. Carter, you need rest. Your injuries are severe. Emma looked at him with eyes that had watched her daughter die. I spent 20 years studying alien species because I wanted to understand them. Now I want to use that knowledge differently. She pulled herself upright despite the pain. I want to know everything about them. Every weakness. Every fear. I want to know how to make them suffer. The doctor did not argue further. He had seen that expression before on the faces of other survivors. It was the look of someone who had nothing left but purpose. Within a week, Emma Carter was transferred to military intelligence. Her expertise in xenobiology made her invaluable, but that was not why they accepted her. They accepted her because she understood the enemy better than anyone alive. And she had every reason to use that understanding for harm. As human ships gathered at staging points across the frontier, the galaxy held its breath. The elder races watched with a mixture of curiosity and concern. They had never seen humans act with such unity, such determination. Elder Yunfei received daily reports on human movements. The numbers did not match their intelligence. There were too many ships, too many soldiers. The humans had been hiding their strength for decades. She sent a private message to the Verac's leadership. A warning. An ancient ally trying to prevent catastrophe. Warlord Krasix read her message and laughed. Humans were prey animals, he replied. They would run when the hunting began. Yuntai did not respond. She simply ordered her own fleet to move to a safe distance. She had lived 4,000 years by recognizing when to stay out of the way. The attacks began at midnight Galactic Standard Time. 12 Verax outposts across the frontier, hit simultaneously by human forces that should not have existed. There were no warnings. There were no demands for surrender. Human ships dropped out of hyperspace, launched their weapons, and destroyed everything that moved. On Outpost 7, the Vorax commander had 30 seconds to send a distress signal before his command center was vaporized. On Outpost 3, the garrison tried to surrender when they realized they were surrounded. The human ships ignored their transmissions and continued firing. On Outpost 9, a Vorax officer managed to escape in a shuttle. Human fighters pursued him for 6 hours through an asteroid field before finally destroying him. No prisoners were taken. No mercy was shown. Commander Jack Carter led Strike Group 7 toward the outpost where Sub-Warlord Thren was stationed. His fleet moved through Varax territory like ghosts, avoiding patrol routes that human intelligence had mapped years ago. His first officer approached him on the bridge. Commander, we are receiving reports from the other strike groups. All targets destroyed. Vorax losses estimated at 40,000. Jack nodded without looking up from his tactical display. What about Thren? Still at his command post. He appears to be preparing for evacuation. Increase speed. I want us there before he can run. The fleet accelerated toward their target. Jack had not slept in 12 days. His crew watched him with a mixture of awe and concern. He had become something more than human, driven by a cold fire that never stopped burning. At the Galactic Compact headquarters, the Elder Races convened an emergency session. Ambassador Torres was summoned to explain human actions. Your forces have committed mass murder, the council speaker declared. This is a violation of compact law. You must cease hostilities immediately. Torres stood alone in the center of the chamber, surrounded by beings who controlled empires spanning thousands of worlds. He did not flinch. "I have a presentation for the council," he said. He activated his own display without waiting for permission. The hologram showed images from New Haven, Lily Carter playing in the square, the Vorak ships descending, the soldiers dragging colonists from their homes. The moment of her death, then the display changed. It showed other raids, other colonies, other children. Hundreds of recordings spanning 3 centuries of Varak's attacks on human settlements. Thousands of dead. Their lives ended while the Compact watched and did nothing. "These are not isolated incidents," Torres said. "This is a pattern. The Voraks have been hunting our people for 300 years, and you chose to ignore it because they were useful to you." The council speaker tried to interrupt. "Ambassador, this is not relevant to the current crisis." "It is the only thing that is relevant," Torres replied. "You had 300 years to stop this. You chose commerce over justice. You decided that human lives were worth less than Vorak's trade routes." He looked around the chamber at the ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia. "You made that choice. Now we are making ours. You had your chance to stop this. You chose not to act. Now you will watch." He turned and walked out for the second time. This time, no one tried to stop him. Captain Sam Holloway led his Special Forces team toward Thren's command bunker. They had landed on the planet's surface while the orbital defenses were still burning. Vorak's warriors rushed to meet them, but humans cut through them like water through sand. Holloway's team moved with perfect coordination. They had trained for this moment for years. Every corridor was mapped. Every defensive position was anticipated. They knew the Voraks better than the Voraks knew themselves. When they reached the bunker entrance, Holloway paused. His soldiers waited for orders, their weapons ready. "Remember," Holloway said, "Thren lives. Everyone else is optional." They breached the door and entered the darkness. Inside the bunker, Thren was gathering his personal guard for a last stand. He had watched the human attack on his monitors. He had seen how they fought. They did not behave like any enemy he had encountered before. Normal enemies hesitated. They calculated risks. They retreated when casualties became too high. Humans did none of these things. They advanced through weapons fire without slowing. They threw themselves at fortified positions with no regard for survival. They kept coming even when they were dying. Thren's communications officer reported that the orbital station was destroyed. His escape route was gone. He was trapped. "We will fight," Thren declared. "We will show these vermin what Vorak's warriors can do." His guards roared in agreement. They were the elite of the elite, the most dangerous soldiers the Voraks had ever produced. They had never known defeat. They lasted 4 minutes against Holloway's team. The humans moved through them with terrible efficiency. They used weapons and tactics the Voraks had never seen. They fought in ways that should have been impossible, anticipating every move, exploiting every weakness. When it was over, Thren stood alone in his command center, surrounded by the bodies of his guard. Captain Holloway approached him, weapon raised. "Commander Carter wants to speak with you," Holloway said. "I strongly suggest you cooperate." Thren considered fighting. He was a warrior. Death in combat was honorable. But something in the human's eyes stopped him. Not anger, not hatred. Something worse. Certainty. Absolute, unshakable certainty that Thren was going to suffer no matter what he did. He surrendered on the Vorak's homeworld. Warlord Krasix received reports of the human attacks. His advisors, who had dismissed the human threat hours ago, were now silent with shock. "Mobilize the full fleet," Krasix commanded. 3,000 ships. Every warrior we have. We will crush these humans and scatter their ashes across the stars. His admirals rushed to obey. The Vorak's war machine, the largest in the sector, began to move. Ships launched from orbital stations. Soldiers boarded transport vessels. Within hours, the greatest armada in Varak's history was ready for war. They jumped to intercept the human advance. They found empty space. The humans had anticipated the response. Their ships had already moved, slipping away through routes the Varaks did not know existed. While Krasik's fleet searched for enemies that were not there, human vessels appeared over Varak's colony worlds, not military targets. Population centers. Commander Jack Carter broadcast on all frequencies. His voice was calm and steady, without emotion. "You taught us how this war is fought," he said. "You showed us that civilians are legitimate targets. You demonstrated that terror is an acceptable weapon." He paused. "We learned a lesson. Now we will teach it back to you." Across the Varak's empire, millions of aliens looked up at skies filled with human warships and understood for the first time what they had awakened. Human ships did not attack Varak civilians. The galaxy expected massacres, but they did not come. Instead, humanity demonstrated something far more terrifying than simple brutality. They demonstrated precision. Power stations were destroyed. Food production facilities were disabled. Water treatment plants were sabotaged. Medical centers were isolated. Every system that kept Varak society functioning was targeted with surgical accuracy. The message was broadcast continuously on all frequencies. "This ends when you surrender those responsible for New Haven. Until then, we will dismantle your civilization piece by piece." Warlord Krasix watched his empire begin to starve. His fleet was still searching for human warships that refused to stand and fight. Every time they located an enemy group, it disappeared before they could engage. The humans were fighting a war of shadows, striking where the Varaks were weak and vanishing before the response arrived. His people were suffering. Colonies that had never known hardship were running out of food. Hospitals were closing because they had no power. Children were crying from hunger, while their parents looked at empty skies and waited for help that was not coming. "This is not war," Krasix raged at his advisors. "This is torture." His chief strategist, an old warrior named Viren, spoke carefully. "Warlord, perhaps it is time to negotiate." "Negotiate? With prey animals? With an enemy that is winning?" Viren gestured at the reports covering the table. "We cannot find their ships. We cannot protect our worlds. We cannot feed our people. Every day we wait, our position grows weaker." Krasix wanted to strike the old fool, but he knew Viren was right. The humans had outmaneuvered them completely. They had turned Varak's strength into weakness, using the Empire's size against itself. "What do they want?" Krasix asked. "Those responsible for New Haven, Thren and the council members who ordered the raid." Krasix considered this. Thren was already captured. The council members could be sacrificed. It might be enough. He opened the communication channel to the human flagship. On the Resolute, Commander Jack Carter received the transmission from the Varak's warlord. He sat in his command chair and watched Krasix appear on the main screen. "Commander Carter," Krasix said, "I wish to discuss terms." Jack said nothing. He simply stared at the alien who led the species that had killed his daughter. Krasix continued, uncomfortable with the silence. "The Varak's High Council has reviewed the incident at New Haven. We acknowledge that certain actions were excessive. We are prepared to hand over those responsible." Still, Jack did not speak. "We will provide Sub-Warlord Thren and the council members who authorized the raid. They will face whatever justice you demand. In exchange, you will end this campaign and withdraw from Varak space." Finally, Jack leaned forward. "You think this is a negotiation?" Krasix blinked, confused. "I am offering you what you asked for. No, you are begging." Jack's voice was flat and cold. "You are not negotiating from a position of strength, Warlord. You have no strength left. Your fleet cannot find us. Your colonies are starving. Your people are looking at you and wondering why you cannot protect them." He paused. "Keep begging. I have not decided if I'm listening." The transmission ended. Krasik stared at the blank screen, understanding for the first time that he was not dealing with a rational enemy. He was dealing with a man who had lost everything and no longer cared about anything except Pain Dot in the intelligence section of the human flagship. Emma Carter made a discovery that changed everything. She had been reviewing captured Varax records, searching for information about the New Haven raid. What she found was far worse than she expected. The attack on New Haven was not random. It was not even about intimidation. It was the first step in a planned campaign to eliminate humanity as a galactic power. Certain members of the Varax High Council had decided that humans were growing too quickly. They believed that a series of brutal raids would break human morale and force them to accept a subordinate position in the galaxy. The death of children was specifically intended to maximize psychological damage. Emma brought the evidence to Admiral Dawson. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "They did not just kill my daughter," Emma said. "They planned to kill thousands more. They saw us as prey to be culled." Dawson reviewed the documents. Her expression darkened. "This changes the scope of our response. Yes, this is not about revenge anymore. This is about making sure they can never threaten us again." The Galactic Compact finally decided to intervene. Elder Yunthai arrived with a peacekeeping fleet of ancient warships, vessels that had maintained order in the galaxy for millennia. They were more powerful than anything humans had built. Admiral Dawson received Yunthai's ultimatum. Both sides must stand down. The compact would mediate a resolution. Refusal would result in military action against the aggressor. Dawson stood on her bridge, looking at the display showing the compact fleet. They were impressive. They might even be able to defeat the human forces. But that was not the question. She opened a channel to Yunthai. "Elder, I understand your position. You want peace. You want stability. You want the galaxy to return to the way it was before." "That is correct," Yunthai replied. "This conflict threatens everything we have built over 10,000 years. Then let me ask you a question." Dawson leaned forward. "What happens to the compact when humanity falls? Who protects you from the next Varax? Who dies for your peace while you count your profits?" Yunthai was silent. "The Varax attacked us because they thought we were weak," Dawson continued. "They were not the first. They will not be the last. Every species in this galaxy has tested humanity at some point, looking for weakness, looking for advantage." She gestured at her fleet. "This is what happens when you find out we are not weak. This is what happens when you push us too far. If you stop us now, you teach the galaxy that humanity can be attacked without consequence. You invite the next aggressor, and the next." Yunthai considered these words. She had lived 4,000 years. She had seen many species rise and fall. She understood power in all its forms. "And if we allow you to continue?" she asked. "Then the galaxy learns that humanity protects its own, that there is a cost for attacking us, that we are not prey." Dawson met the ancient being's gaze. "You need us, Elder, more than you want to admit. We fight the wars that comfortable species no longer wish to fight. We pay the prices that ancient civilizations no longer wish to pay. You can destroy us today, but you will miss us tomorrow." Yunthai was silent for a long moment. Then she gave an order to her fleet. They withdrew as the compact ships disappeared into hyperspace. Yunthai sent a private message to Dawson. "Finish this quickly. And remember, we are watching." Dawson smiled grimly. "We always knew you were watching. That is why we hid for so long." The path to the Varax homeworld was clear. The final battle was about to begin. The human fleet arrived at the Varax homeworld on a clear morning. The alien sky turned dark with thousands of warships, blocking out the sun itself. Below, millions of Varax looked up and knew that their world was about to change forever. The planetary defenses were formidable. Orbital stations bristled with weapons. Ground batteries covered every approach. The Varax had built their homeworld into a fortress over centuries of conquest. No enemy had ever breached it. The humans breached it in 6 hours. They knew every weakness, every blind spot, every flaw in the defense network. They had studied the Varax for decades, preparing for a war they hoped would never come. Now, that preparation was being used for destruction. Commander Jack Carter landed with the first wave of ground forces. His officers had tried to convince him to remain on the ship where it was safe. He had refused. He was not here as a commander. He was here as a father. The capital city fell quickly. Varax warriors fought desperately, but humans moved through them with cold efficiency. There was no rage in the human soldiers, no hatred. There was only purpose. They had a job to do, and they did it without hesitation. Jack advanced through the burning streets toward the detention center where Thren was being held. His soldiers cleared a path for him, removing any obstacle between him and the alien who had killed his daughter. The detention center was a gray building in the heart of the city. Human forces had secured it hours ago. Jack entered alone, leaving his guards at the door. He found Thren in a small cell, sitting on a metal bench. The Varax warrior who had terrorized the frontier looked diminished, broken by weeks of captivity and the collapse of everything he had believed. His scales were dull. A veal. His eyes were empty. Jack sat down across from him. For a long moment, neither spoke. "Tell me why," Jack finally said. Thren looked up. "Why what? Why New Haven? Why Lily? Tell me why you chose that colony. Why you chose my daughter." Thren was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice flat. "Your colony was selected because it was undefended. Your daughter was selected because she was convenient. She was in the right place at the right time." Jack felt something twist inside him. "That is all? Convenience? War is not personal, human. Your daughter was not killed because of who she was. She was killed because of what she was. A tool for sending a message. What message? That humanity should fear us. That you should stay in your place. That you should not spread into territory that belongs to the strong." Jack leaned forward. "And now? Do you think we received your message?" Thren met his eyes. For the first time, something like fear flickered across his face. "I think we made a terrible mistake. I think we woke something that should have been left sleeping." The door to the cell opened. Emma Carter walked in. She had crossed the galaxy to be here for this moment. Her body was still healing from the injuries she had suffered at New Haven. Her movements were slow and careful, but her eyes were steady. She looked at Thren, the alien who had held her daughter while she died, the creature who had broadcast that death across the stars. Then she looked at her husband. She saw what he was about to do. She saw the darkness that had consumed him since that terrible day. "Don't," she said quietly. Jack's hands were shaking. "Emma, he killed her. He killed Lily. I know." Emma moved closer. She put her hand on his shoulder. "I watched it happen. I see it every time I close my eyes. I will never stop seeing it. Then let me finish this. Let me give her justice." Emma shook her head slowly. "This is not justice. This is revenge. And revenge means becoming what they are." She gestured at Thren. "He killed Lily because he thought it did not matter. Because he thought human lives were worthless. If you kill him the same way, you are proving him right." Jack stared at his wife. The rage inside him was overwhelming. It demanded blood. It demanded pain. It demanded that Thren suffer the way Lily had suffered, but he saw something in Emma's eyes. Not forgiveness, not mercy, something harder than both of those things. Hope. The hope that they could build something better than vengeance. The hope that Lily's death could mean something more than an endless cycle of violence. He turned back to Thren. His hands were still shaking. His heart was still burning. "You will face trial," Jack said. The words came out slowly, each one a battle against the darkness. "You and the council members who ordered the raid. Your crimes will be documented for the entire galaxy to see. And then you will be executed, cleanly, quickly, without cruelty." Thren looked surprised. "That is all? After everything I did?" "That is justice. That is what separates us from you." Jack stood up. "I wanted to kill you slowly. I wanted you to suffer. But my daughter would not have wanted that. She was kind. She was gentle. She saw good in everyone." He walked to the door. "I will not dishonor her memory by becoming a monster." The trials lasted 3 weeks. Thren and the Varax council members who had planned the New Haven raid were tried publicly, their crimes broadcast across the galaxy. They were executed by firing squad, quickly and without torture. The Varax Empire was not destroyed. Their territory was reduced. Their military was disbanded. Their economy was restructured under human supervision. They would spend generations rebuilding, learning to be something other than conquerors. Ambassador Torres addressed the Galactic Compact one final time. The chamber was silent as he spoke. Humanity did not want this war. We hid our strength for decades because we wanted peace. We accepted insults and attacks because we thought patience was better than violence. He looked around at the ancient beings who ruled the stars. We were wrong. He stood taller. We will take our place among the elder races now, not as a minor species to be tolerated, as an equal to be respected. And remember what we are capable of when you consider how to treat us in the future. 5 years later, a memorial stood on New Haven. The colony had been rebuilt, larger and stronger than before. Gardens grew where blood had been spilled. Children played where soldiers had fought. Jack and Emma Carter visited the memorial on the anniversary of the attack. They came with 3 children, orphans of the war that they had adopted. Life had continued. The wound had not healed, but it had become something they could carry. A young Varax approached them. He was barely adult, part of the first generation to grow up after the war. He carried flowers, a human custom that his people were learning. He placed the flowers at the memorial, beside the carved names of the victims. "We remember," he said. "We teach our children. Never again." Jack watched the young alien walk away. He thought about the future. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed it. The cost had been terrible, but Emma took his hand. Their adopted children laughed and played in the gardens. The sun was warm. The sky was clear. Lily would have loved this day. Jack looked at his family, at the life they had built from the ashes of tragedy. He thought about revenge and justice, about rage and hope. He had stood at the edge of becoming something terrible, and he had stepped back. Not because the Varax deserved mercy. Not because violence was wrong. Because he wanted to be the kind of man his daughter would have been proud of. The galaxy would remember what humanity could do when pushed too far. They would remember the fleets and the battles and the fall of an empire. But Jack hoped they would also remember this. A human and a Varax, standing at the same memorial, learning to be better. That was the real victory. Not destruction, but transformation. Not revenge, but the possibility of something new. Lily would have understood. She was always the kindest of them all.